Hello everybody, today I have a video that I've been wanting to make for a while now. Today I will be showing you my LEGO movie inspired Bruticus. The first ever showcase related video I did was on my movie Stunticon designs that were based off the live action Michael Bay movies. I basically took the original G1 Stunticons and then Bay-versified them. And ever since that video, I knew I had to make a Bruticus to go along with it. Because not only did I want to complete the trio of the Decepticon combiners, but also two of the members of the Combaticons appeared in the movies. So I knew that half the work was already done. And not long after I made my Stunticons video, I very quickly made and showed off my Combaticons and Bruticus design. The original design wasn't that good at all, and going back to the original video, it barely looks like a live action Transformer at all. It has a vague resemblance to the art style, but besides that, it wasn't really that good. And ever since I made it, I've always looked back at it wanting to recreate it. And at first glance, if you've seen the original video, and I suggest you do watch the original video just to get an understanding of what I'm talking about, but it's not really important because the video is really not that good. You can barely tell what I'm saying. In my original video, you might notice that these guys look nothing from what they looked like in the original video. In my original design, I didn't make Bruticus anatomically correct. What I mean by this is certain members that form certain parts of the body did not go to those parts of the body. Like Vortex became a leg and Brawl became both arms at the same time somehow. After I finished the two-part video, I basically immediately scrapped Bruticus. He slowly fell apart in the corner of my room until I eventually decided I was done with him and just took him apart and used him for other things. However, I did keep the original head of him. It has been updated a little bit since the original video, but that's really just to make it look nicer. I basically kept this as a reminder of what I built and to also eventually recreate what I did. And it actually followed through and helped me remember to recreate Bruticus. This head is not used on the body, but I'll kind of get more into that later on. I plan to split this video into a two-part video, kind of like how I did it originally, but it's just going to be a lot more fast-paced so you can understand what's happening. Starting in the order of which I built them, first we have Vortex. And he is the only design that vaguely resembles my original one. And even at that, you can barely tell that this is based off my original design. He doesn't have his shield gun thing. He doesn't have his helicopter rotor claw thing looking thing. And his head was also squished down. One of the main things I didn't like about the original design I made for him was that his head basically sat up here. Imagine if it was up here, that's where it was. So I squish it down more to this kind of shoulder height that feels a lot more natural. His shoulders are almost higher than his head, but I feel like it fits the aesthetic of Bayverse. And he's actually one of my favorite designs out of my newer Combaticons design, and he's also the tallest of the team. Yeah, besides that, there's not too much to talk about him. He's got a really nice design, and one thing I really like is how I managed to perfectly hide all combining elements. You looking at this guy, you can barely even tell that he transforms. He just looks like he's this unique design for a robot. But the way he combines is that there's two holes in his back that click onto the arm joint. Next up is Blastoff. And while Vortex was the closest to my original design, Blastoff is the exact opposite. He's the furthest from my original design out of all of them. As you can see here, he kind of has this more airplane aesthetic where you could see more of the kind of jet mode that he turns into kind of coming out. My original design, he turned into a space shuttle, which was more accurate to his G1 design, which he did turn into some sort of space shuttle type thing. But if you think about it, Blastoff being a space shuttle just doesn't make sense, so I decided to turn him into a fighter jet. It just made more sense. Another thing is that he's got this massive cannon coming out the top. I also kind of wanted this. This basically just becomes the entire arm of the robot mode, but I decided instead of having an awkward arm just hanging off the edge or the side, I decided just to implement it and make it just this giant over-the-top cannon that just is way too much. And his character design, it feels like one of those Bayverse designs that it He's like very, very stylized, and you can barely tell where what is, like where his arms are, where his legs start, end, and where his head's supposed to be. That's kind of what I went with this guy. And he does now turn into an arm. My original design, he turned into the waist for some reason. He turned into the waist and upper legs of the robot. And it made no sense, especially because it made the robot look really weird, really clunky, and also made it really heavy. The fact that you had these two giant chunks of plastic that clicked together to become the body. And so I've slimmed him down, shrunk him down, and now he turns into the arm. Next up is Swindle. And while in my original design, he was the tallest of all my designs, my newer version, he's actually the shortest. Not including this giant chunk up here, which I don't because it's removable, he is the shortest member of my team. And speaking of the original design, he was the first one that like I conceptualized. The first design, the legs were the first thing I designed of the original one. The way I originally designed the original legs for my first version of Bruticus, I was on vacation, and the vacation house we were at had this bin of Lego at it, and there's this like handful of random Bionicle pieces, and when put together a certain way, they almost formed like a chest of a robot, but then they could fold down to become like a leg for a different robot. And after I saw this, I was absolutely inspired and took photos, which is what you're seeing here. And then once I got home from vacation, I immediately got to work on designing the legs of my original Bruticus. Yeah, but anyways, getting into this guy, his design is very short, stocky, and chunky compared to my original design that was a lot more tall, lanky, and almost didn't resemble a Transformer at all. He kind of more felt like the generic sci-fi evil robot type thing, and I even kind of like leaned into that a little bit with my original design. Like I said, he was like a lifeless drone that liked shiny things, kind of trying to go with like Swindle's kind of devious Swindle personality, hence his name. But now I like to think that he's a lot more along the lines of his original personality. I like to think that he's basically the original G1 character, but just in live action movie form. I have this like kind of three eye thing going on. I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know if I want it to be three eyes or just like this weirdly shaped visor that kind of curls a little bit. On his back, there's this giant weird thing. This becomes the foot in the combiner. I really had nowhere to put this, so I kind of just stuck it to his back and said that it was just some sort of like kind of shoulder cannon type scorpion tail, whatever. And it doesn't look that bad. To be honest, with the aesthetic I was going with, it honestly doesn't look bad. But now on to Brawl. And Brawl is probably one of my favorite upgrades out of all of them. Comparing him to my original design, he looks just so much nicer. He's the one that I'm the most proud of out of all my recreations. And basically some context on that, my original design, he was like thrown together. He was the last one I designed, and he also needed to form both legs due to the way I created Bruticus. And yeah, it really wasn't that good, and he was mostly a dark gray for some reason and not like a camo green like he is here. And it just looked really bad. His head looked like nothing. His arms were really weird looking, and his body was just really weirdly proportioned. And so with my redesign, one of the most important things to me was getting Brawl right. Because out of all the other designs that were okay on their own and even together, Brawl was the only one that just did not work and did not look good. So I made it my priority out of all of them to make him look good. And I feel like I have achieved that. I feel like I managed to capture Brawl's aesthetic in the movies, how he looked in the movies, because he was one of the only ones that actually appeared in the movies, and he had a decent amount of screen time too. So I wanted to make sure he looked good. He's kind of small for my liking. I wish he was a little bigger, especially compared to all the other guys. And he also has no hands or feet, but that's kind of a sacrifice I had to make for the combined mode. It wouldn't have worked without it. And also the tank treads that are supposed to become his shoulders are now this weird like over the shoulder kind of backpack type thing that can also be removed, and he he looks a little bare without it, but you can kind of see the full design a little better without it on. But with it on, it does kind of bulk him up a little bit. And at certain angles, it does look better with the backpack on, but at other angles, it looks better without it. Next up is Onslaught. And besides Brawl, he's the only other one to appear in the movies. Besides him and Brawl, none of the other characters appear. And it's kind of sad to me the fact that they designed characters from the combiners, but they never combined. Talk about a missed opportunity, am I right? And yeah, getting into it, my original design of him, he was a lot bigger, he was a lot bulkier. So if he had like a very, very big backpack that would fall off, like there's like these two large like kind of shoulder tower things, which are supposed to be these now. But my original design, there are these massive shoulder towers that hung off his back with like these two poor connections that would very easily fall off. And basically the entirety of the video, I'm having to pick him back up and put him back on. And so one thing I did, I chopped off those shoulder towers, and I've shrunken them down to these, which are more accurate to the movie. In the movie, he does have like these small little shoulder tower things that aren't really that big and flashy, and I did kind of like my original design where they're these massive shoulder towers, but this just fits it a little better. If Studio Series ever makes a Studio Series Onslaught, I'm going to pick it up and basically just replace this guy with him. And just, if I were to ever do a video, I would just use the Studio Series one instead of this guy, but they don't have a Studio Series one yet, so I'm still waiting. Another thing that I fixed from his original design is that I removed all the rust from him. My original design, I put a lot of brown, dark gray, and sand-colored pieces all over him to make him look more rusted and worn down, because in the movie, he is a very, very rusty. But then he turns into a truck, and it's the most beautiful tow truck you've ever seen. The reality is that I just ran out of pieces and just made up the excuse being like, oh, it's just battle damage, just rust. But in reality, I just ran out of green. And so here what I did, I scraped off all the rust and just made it all white and dark green. And last, and probably least, we have Warpath. He was the last character I designed out of all of them, and he also was the only character that wasn't originally from the Combaticons. Which is why I didn't really put much care into designing him. He was basically just a throwaway character. I was like, you know what? I have all the original characters from Bruticus done. I don't really care what this guy looks like. So I just threw him together. He is just the lower half of a Ninjago mech that I repurposed into the lower half of Bruticus, which is why there's so much gold on him. But I'd like to think that that's like internal parts to his tank mode, vehicle mode, which is a tank. And he doesn't have any treads on him, but I like to think these black things sticking out the back are parts of the treads that kind of form part of the body as like armor or something. Besides that, and these little kind of cannon things here, he really doesn't have any notifiers that he turns into a tank, because like I said, this is the last character I designed, and he was kind of a throwaway character. When it comes to scaling, most of the characters are about the same size as like an average Transformer figure, a little shorter, and I intentionally made these guys a lot smaller than my original designs because I just wanted to make sure that I had the pieces to make them and they still held up in combined mode. And the most important thing to me was making the combined mode good while also making the individual characters look good as well. Because I was trying to juggle in between the two while still making them like look accurate, which I really struggled on originally, but now I feel like actually sitting down and taking the time to properly design them, it helps out a lot. And as you can see here, they're all kind of shorter than Optimus is, even though Onslaught and Brawl should both be about the same height, a bit taller than Optimus Prime. So when most people design custom character designs for the movies, they often just create their adaptation of the character and kind of just leave it at that. But me, however, I like to actually implement my characters into the story. So for my Stunticons, I'd like to think that they existed in between the second and third movie and were killed off by the third movie off screen. And for the Combaticons, since they appear in the movies, it's a little harder because I have to somehow intertwine their existence in the movies into my own fan fiction. And it gets kind of complicated. But what I'd like to think is that Bruticus, originally he wasn't a combiner, but his own robot, and he was like one of the strongest Decepticons, but he constantly defied Megatron and was getting in the way of plans and was making it a lot harder for the Decepticons to function. So eventually Megatron had him destroyed and kept his head as a trophy to kind of show like what happens when you defy Megatron. What happens is that Megatron gets like frozen on Earth for millions of years in the movies. And I like to think during this time, Starscream builds the members of the Combaticons in order to kind of fill up the blanks and try and maintain the Decepticon army until Megatron came back, and almost trying to become the leader and like build his own team of Decepticons. And what he did is that he gave the Combaticons parts of Bruticus's mind. Like he split it into 6 and then gave it up to all of them. So they kind of worked as a functioning hive mind. Like they all kind of thought the same way that Bruticus did, and then but over time they slowly built their own personalities and kind of more so split up, which is why we don't see them together in the movies. If you enjoyed today's video, please leave a like and subscribe. And the only reason why I'm splitting this into 2 parts is because I don't want to edit a 40-minute video or 30-minute video, however long it would be. So instead, I'd rather edit 2 15, 20-minute videos and have people watch them separately. Yeah, if you want to see part 2, please subscribe. Until then, bye-bye.